The story begins with our protagonist, the Baskerville family's hound, Vikir Van Baskerville, facing the guillotine. Yep, you heard that right, a loyal hound on the chopping block. Poor Vikir was sentenced to execution on trumped-up charges of hanging out with the demon clan. As he stared down his final moments, he vowed that if he ever got another shot at life, he'd definitely skip the whole being a hound thing. Next thing Vikir knew, he woke up in a cradle, completely disoriented. His first thought, is this hell? Because it's way too noisy, and I feel like I just pulled an all-nighter. Turns out, he was in a nursery, surrounded by a chorus of crying babies. Meanwhile, the Baskerville family patriarch, Hugo Le Baskerville, was doing his rounds. He glanced at the wailing infants and casually dismissed them as insignificant, even calling them trash. Talk about a warm and fuzzy family moment. When Hugo approached Vikir's cradle, he noticed something different. The baby was much quieter than the rest. Maybe Vikir was just too stunned to cry, or maybe he was already plotting his revenge. Hugo ordered for Vikir to be moved to the Cradle of Swords, and his attendant, clearly used to strange requests, complied without hesitation. As Vikir lay there, he glared up at Hugo with pure hatred. He knew Hugo was the mastermind behind his false charges and ultimate execution. If looks could kill, Hugo would have been toast right then and there. Vikir realized he had been regressed to his baby years and that he had spent his past life as a hound for the Baskerville family. He'd been born into an illegitimate branch of the family and received training in, let's say, less than ideal conditions. Raised to be a loyal hound, he was willing to do any dirty work to make the Baskerville family the top dog among the 7 families. Vikir had stayed loyal to the family and Hugo, craving acknowledgement. But his loyalty was rewarded with a death sentence. Why? Because he knew too much. Typical, right? Vikir swore he'd never live that life again and vowed to take his revenge. In his newborn body, Vikir knew he couldn't do much just yet. Being moved to the Cradle of Swords, however, was a prime opportunity for him to become stronger. In the Baskerville family, children had to undergo a trial called the Cradle of Swords. They were tossed into a maze of blades and had to navigate their way to the Styx River, where their talent would be evaluated. The Styx River was a legendary body of water that turned the children's bodies into iron. But there was a catch: only a limited number of children could be transformed, so getting there first was crucial. The only way to reach the Styx River quickly was to head straight through the helix-shaped wall of blades, a task that was far from easy. As Vikir crawled through the Cradle of Swords maze, he couldn't help but reflect on his past life. He had been ousted by his siblings and missed out on the transformation he desperately needed. But this time, things would be different. No more getting the short end of the stick, or, in this case, the sword. Determined to hog the Styx River's blessings, Vikir pressed on through the maze until splash. He tumbled right into the legendary river. The water seeped into his guts, causing him agony. But hey, no pain, no gain, right? He gritted his teeth and bore it, refusing to let this golden opportunity slip through his baby fingers. Outside the maze, Vikir's attendants panicked, shouting for him to surface before he turned into a soggy hound biscuit. But Vikir, stubborn as a baby with a new toy, clung on. Meanwhile, Hugo stood by, eyes glinting with anticipation. He turned to John Barrymore, the head butler, and casually inquired how long Vikir had been underwater. Barrymore, ever the clock watcher, reported about 7 minutes. Hugo chuckled, half joking about Vikir's survival odds, while the attendants exchanged worried glances, pleading for Hugo to intervene. "Hey, Vikir," Hugo called out, trying to sound like he cared. "You can come out now." But Vikir, deep in his aquatic absorption, wasn't listening. He was too busy soaking in that sweet Styx River essence, thinking, "Sorry, Hugo, but I'm not letting go of this opportunity like yesterday's chew toy." Desperate to absorb every drop, Vikir pushed on until gulp, water flooded his tiny mouth. Likes. Despite the danger, he clenched his fists and repeated to himself, "Endure, endure, endure." It looked like Vikir might become the world's smallest submarine, but just in time, Hugo swooped in with a smug grin and yanked him out. Greedy little pup, drinking straight from the sticks, Hugo chuckled, shaking his head. Then, Hugo noticed something surprising. Vikir already had teeth. Hugo turned to the head butler, demanding to know the baby's name. Vikir Van Baskerville, the butler promptly replied. Hugo smirked, quipping, "Looks like we've got ourselves a real go-getter here, a greedy one." At that, meanwhile, Vikir, still half-conscious, quietly vowed to use this unexpected break to sharpen those teeth. He was plotting revenge, plotting it with teeth so sharp even the vet would be impressed. The Baskerville family would also disappear into history by his own hands. Vikir Van Baskerville was born as the bastard son of Hugo Le Baskerville, a renowned nobleman of his time. At the tender age of 8, it became apparent that Vikir possessed extraordinary intelligence that far surpassed his peers. However, within the Baskerville family, he was considered nothing but ordinary due to his lack of direct lineage to the family's prominent bloodline. As Vikir matured, he delved into various disciplines, ultimately gravitating toward the perilous paths of assassination, espionage, and conquest. By the time he turned 20, he had already undertaken numerous missions that showcased his formidable skills. Despite his accomplishments, Vikir couldn't shake the feeling of inadequacy compared to those born into the family's inner circle. At the age of 30, the gate leading to the demonic realm opened, signaling the beginning of a terrifying invasion by the demon clans. Vikir, now a seasoned warrior, stepped up to defend his realm, engaging in battles that saw him slaughter monsters left and right. Enduring through years of destruction, Vikir fought tirelessly to protect his people during the chaotic era. When the long war finally ended with humanity victorious, Vikir expected accolades and praise. Instead, he found himself facing slander and false accusations. These baseless claims eventually led to Vikir's grim fate, execution by the unforgiving guillotine's blade. As Vikir sat up in bed, he realized he was in a nursery. Surveying his surroundings, he realized he had successfully absorbed the power of the Styx River, an achievement that promised a new beginning far more promising than his past life. Just then, the door creaked open, and a maid entered, looking perplexed. She muttered to herself about why Madame had instructed her to leave something for young Master Vikir. Vikir was taken aback. The idea of anyone from the Baskerville family acknowledging him, a bastard, with a gift was beyond his expectations. The maid left after placing a box on Vikir's bed. Opening it cautiously, Vikir was shocked to find two lively mambas inside, their fangs glistening ominously. He couldn't help but wonder if Madame had sent them as a deadly welcoming committee. With only a few individuals in the Baskerville family deserving the title of Madame, it seemed someone was out to eliminate the competition. As the mambas hissed menacingly, Vikir realized they posed a threat not just to him but to all the babies in the nursery. Fueled by bitterness and resolve, he swore to bring down the entire Baskerville dynasty with his own hands. The next day, the people of Baskerville were stunned to find Vikir peacefully asleep next to the deceased vipers. All the nannies on duty that night faced torture and execution, yet the mystery of the viper's appearance remained unsolved. Only young Vikir knew the truth. 8 years later, Vikir found himself back in class, listening intently as his teacher lectured on swordsmanship levels. The teacher explained that those unable to infuse mana into their swords were deemed sword beginners. Progressing further, sword experts could imbue their blades with a trace of mana. When the mana formed a liquid-like aura around the blade, they were known as sword graduators. Achieving the pinnacle, sword masters could manipulate mana into a solid form, freely changing its shape. Upon hearing that Sir Hugo, the strongest of the Baskervilles, was a sword master, all the students gasped in awe. However, Vikir was lost in thought, determined to reclaim the power he had before his unexpected regression, prior to his coming-of-age ceremony. The teacher noticed Vikir's absent-minded state and held him in high esteem. Aware of Vikir's remarkable physical endurance displayed by surviving 7 minutes submerged in the Styx River, the teacher believed Vikir possessed exceptional talent beyond the other students and anticipated the patriarch's satisfaction upon hearing of Vikir's progress. Meanwhile, as Vikir contemplated the years ahead and his plan for revenge against Hugo, he failed to notice the triplets glaring at him menacingly after class. They shoved him and began taunting him, labeling him garbage van and spreading rumors about his legendary baby feats diving into the Styx River and strangling two vipers. Vikir recognized them as the trio who had stabbed him in the back during his previous ordeal of slander. They were known collectively as Hugo Le Baskerville's Trident, comprising Hugo Le Baskerville, Middleborough Le Baskerville, and Lowborough Le Baskerville, all 9 years old. The triplets continued their relentless taunting of Vikir, demanding he stop lying and openly expressing their dislike for him. Vikir silently assessed that these troublemakers would only become more of a nuisance in the years ahead. It might be prudent to put them in their place now. As Vikir confronted the triplets, one of them flashed a knife and mocked him with a rumor supposedly staying in the Styx River long enough turned one's body into steel, making them impervious to blade injuries. The other 2 triplets eagerly agreed, and one held Vikir while another covered his mouth, daring him to endure this for 3 minutes. Unfazed, Vikir played along with their cruel game. The triplets tried to harm him with the knife. 1 minute passed, then 3, then 10, yet Vikir remained unscathed, proving the legend true. Growing bored, they began to release Vikir. As one let go, Vikir noticed blood on his hand and realized the triplet's finger was missing. With an evil grin, Vikir spat out the finger, reminding the triplet of his foolish bet. Meanwhile, the other 2 triplets attempted to defuse the situation, suggesting they visit a priest to reattach the finger. Vikir, however, had other plans and demanded to know who had set them loose. Enraged, the triplet lashed out with the knife, hurling insults and boasting of their seniority by a mere year. Without flinching, Vikir allowed the knife to strike him. To the triplet's astonishment, it failed to pierce his skin. Vikir twisted the triplet's hand, reminding them that in Baskerville, strength and talent trumped age. With a chilling stare, Vikir suggested they continue their game to its bitter end. Twisting the triplet's hand mercilessly, Vikir's voice dropped to a menacing growl, asserting that in Baskerville, age meant nothing compared to strength and talent. Terrified, the triplets exchanged shocked glances, realizing they had underestimated Vikir. Vikir suddenly punched one triplet, sending him sprawling to the ground, while the other 2 stared in disbelief. The second triplet lunged at Vikir in a rage, only to be met with a swift kick to the face, crashing down beside his brother. The room fell silent as the triplets lay battered and broken, while Vikir stood over them, cold and unfeeling. He then informed them that although they would recover with treatment, he wasn't letting them leave the room anytime soon. They'd have to live with the discomfort of their injuries. However, he generously offered to let one of them go. Surprised and somewhat relieved, the triplets asked which one of them could leave. Vikir picked up a knife and threw it in front of them, saying they had to decide for themselves. As he started to leave, he turned back with a taunting remark, "I can't wait forever, so decide quickly. At least one of you should survive, right?" The triplets eyed the knife and then each other, realizing their survival depended on it. They began to fight, each trying to grab the knife and gain the upper hand. The sounds of their struggle echoed through the room, and Vikir listened with satisfaction from outside. He had successfully split the Baskerville Trident, pitting brother against brother in a fight for survival. Meanwhile, in the Patriarch's office, the head butler, John Barrymore, delivered unsettling news to Hugo Le Baskerville. The Moore clan was causing trouble in the ruby mines, claiming the territory as their own. However, Hugo assured John that they would handle the matter when the Moore clan reached out. John then reported on the interim evaluation of the juvenile fortress, informing Hugo that Master Vikir had scored the highest on the written exam. The practical exam was scheduled in 5 days, and the Guardian Knights had vacated the premises in preparation. But John hesitated before mentioning a recent incident at the juvenile fortress. John informed the Patriarch that there had been a big fight among the young masters at the fortress. Patriarch Hugo was concerned and asked how many of them had died. Butler John informed Hugo that there were no casualties, but Master Highborough's teeth had been completely damaged, Master Middleborough's jaw had been smashed in, and Master Lowborough's left index finger had been amputated. Although they had recovered physically since being treated, the psychological damage seemed significant. Patriarch Hugo was taken aback and remarked that they wouldn't have fought among themselves since they were so close. John then revealed that there was some friction with another young master, an 8-year-old named Master Vikir, who had wounded the 3 young masters and also had the highest scores on the written exam. After expressing his concern about the incident at the juvenile fortress, Patriarch Hugo summoned Vikir to his office. Vikir arrived with a smile on his face, and Patriarch Hugo commented on how much he had grown since they last met. He then brought up the issue of Vikir disabling the 9-year-old triplets in his senior class. Vikir responded that the brothers had received proper medical treatment since then. However, Patriarch Hugo pointed out that he was not talking about physical disabilities but the disability of the heart. Patriarch Hugo explained how the incident had torn the brothers' relationship apart and asked Vikir if he thought what he did was wrong. Vikir responded with a question of his own, "What did I do wrong?" Hugo pointed out that he had turned his brothers into a total mess. With a confident glint in his crimson eyes, Vikir replied, "I am stronger, and how can the stronger person be wrong?" Patriarch Hugo then revealed that Vikir's brothers had forgiven him, yet he still didn't feel an ounce of guilt. Vikir seemed surprised and asked, "They forgave me?" He suddenly recalled a memory before his regression. The youngest daughter of a family ruined by the Baskerville clan had come to visit Hugo. She had become a noon and, despite everything, forgave Hugo for his clan's actions against her family. Vikir repeated the same line Hugo had said to the noon. Forgiveness is an excuse made by the weak who cannot seek revenge due to their lack of strength, as Vikir emphasized the importance of strength. Hugo showed his approval by nodding, his eyes glowing with agreement. He then turned to the head butler, Barrymore, and instructed him to let Vikir take any snack he wanted from the food storage, as much as he could carry on his own. Vikir expressed his gratitude by requesting chocolates. As Vikir was leaving with the head butler, Hugo addressed him as his son, urging him to perform well in the upcoming evaluation and not to lose to the direct descendants. Vikir acknowledged the advice, but his face was filled with hatred. Vikir and the head butler made their way to the storage room. The head butler began to inform him about the chocolate, explaining that it was the highest quality chocolate that the Moor clan had obtained with much difficulty and that it was enjoyed by their gourmands. Vikir quickly interrupted, stating that he didn't want anything processed. The head butler was taken aback and asked for clarification. Vikir requested cacao beans, ones that had a rich aroma. The head butler was confused but complied and had the beans brought to Vikir. As Vikir put one of the beans in his mouth, the chef informed him that they were bloody beans known for their rich aroma and that with just one bean, he could produce 100 liters of chocolate. The head butler watched as Vikir ate the bitter bean and thought to himself that Vikir must really love chocolate to eat something so bitter on its own. He also considered that this was a good method to obtain more chocolate, as after being processed, Vikir would have a huge amount available. The chef asked Vikir if he wanted them to process the beans and send them to his room, but Vikir declined and said he would take them as is. The head butler was left wondering if Vikir just had peculiar tastes. Vikir had no interest in eating the chocolate. He had a plan for the cacao beans. He intended to use the beans in the upcoming practical exam in 5 days. Little did they know, a catastrophic event was about to occur, one unlike anything the Baskerville clan had ever witnessed. In this world, the Baskerville family is known as the Berserker family due to the intense training and evaluation their children undergo from a young age. The training begins as soon as the children can take their first steps. They are immediately subjected to a rigorous stamina test, which involves running up a steep mountain. They are not allowed to lie down or rest on their stomachs except during allocated times. As if this wasn't enough, when it's time to sleep, they are required to sleep alongside a monster corpse. This is designed to help them adjust to tough environments and become resilient in the face of danger. These extreme practices are what make the Baskerville family feared and respected throughout the land. After enduring this period of grueling training, the children reach the age of 8, and the real test begins. The young hounds, as they are called, must undergo a deadly evaluation. This is the defining moment that has earned the Baskerville family its notorious reputation. On the outskirts of their territory lies a mountain known as Le Rouge et le Noir, filled with monsters. It is here that the young hounds gather to undergo their evaluation. The instructor of the Baskerville family, Shadow Dog Pavlov Van Baskerville, stood before the young masters and explained the rules of the test. They needed to survive for a month in the area and hunt large, formidable monsters. He outlined the scoring system: 10 points for surviving successfully, 30 points for survival without disability, 50 points for outlasting other participants, 70 points for defeating a monster and surviving, and 90 points for achieving all conditions. Additional points could be earned by stealing another participant's badge. However, death meant 0 points. Pavlov stressed that there were no perfect scores, echoing Sir Hugo's lesson that arrogance leads to a swordsman's downfall. The instructor cautioned against straying from the designated area, emphasizing that Le Rouge et le Noir was a restricted zone with many unknown dangers. He advised the young masters to move within areas where monsters had already been subdued. During the exam, Shadow Dog's guardian knights would covertly observe and grade their performance. As the young masters waited for the start of the practical exam, some of them noticed Vikir and began discussing his past feats. Despite their comments, Vikir remained composed, focusing on the familiar terrain of Le Rouge et le Noir mountain that he had visited before. Nearby, the triplets stood nervously, visibly sweating with fear. Shadow Dog Pavlov addressed the young masters, wishing them luck as the bell rang, signaling the start of the exam. Immediately, all the young masters sprinted toward different parts of the mountain to secure advantageous positions. One master had a strategic plan, intending to reach a location he had scouted from the previous year's exam, hoping for an edge. Another master, fearing isolation, decided to tail him, intent on seizing any opportunity that arose. Meanwhile, the triplets argued among themselves, each vying to assert their dominance and come out on top. Shadow Dog Pavlov observed as the exam commenced, understanding the importance of minimizing casualties. Though not explicitly forbidden, killing was discouraged, and penalties were imposed for unnecessary violence. One shadow dog assigned to monitor Vikir was surprised to see him heading towards a restricted area. Intrigued by rumors of Vikir's prodigious talent since childhood, the shadow dog pondered his intentions and awaited the display of his skills. Vikir approached a large tree, evaluating it as a potential campsite. He deemed the soft ground suitable for a temporary base and began gathering wood and practicing with a wooden stick. Later, he rested peacefully under the tree. The shadow dog, watching Vikir's activities, grew impatient and began questioning his approach. Observing Vikir digging holes, hunting for food, and collecting supplies, the shadow dog doubted the rumors of Vikir's genius. He wondered if Vikir intended to hide rather than actively engage in the exam. At last, the shadow dog decided to move on and explore elsewhere. As soon as the shadow dog departed, Vikir's face lit up with a smile of relief. He was glad to finally have some peace and quiet, reminiscing that camping outside reminded him of simpler times. Recalling a conversation with his past group mates about using cacao beans to mask the fishy smell, Vikir tossed some of the bitter beans into the fire, remarking on the departure of the interfering shadow dog and feeling fully prepared. He contemplated whether it was time to begin his hunt. A few days later, Vikir ventured into the restricted area he had scouted earlier. As he explored, he detected a faint scent of burning and charred tree roots, indicating the presence of the monster he sought. Suddenly, he stumbled upon burnt droppings and recognized the telltale signs a hellhound was nearby. Standing before Vikir, the hellhound emitted flames from its mouth, a creature known to bring catastrophic disasters to those it encountered. This hellhound, with a danger rating of B+ and standing 3 meters tall, unleashed sulfuric flames that were highly combustible, capable of igniting sparks and engulfing anything in their path. Its bite was fatal, and even the wood it consumed burned until nothing remained. Vikir knew he was in dire straits as the towering hellhound lunged towards him with ferocious intent. Drawing on his past experience and knowledge of the monster's weaknesses, he swiftly dodged to the side, exploiting the hellhound's difficulty in changing direction once committed to a straight line. As the beast charged, Vikir deftly sprinkled water onto the ground, shouting out the second weakness of lookout monsters: they could not cross water. Reacting to the water barrier, the hellhound veered off course, buying Vikir precious moments to maneuver. He understood that even a shallow pool could significantly impede the creature, a weakness shared among all canine monsters: difficulty in attacking with their mouths open while running. Yet, despite his preparations, Vikir found himself in a life-threatening struggle as the hellhound bore down on him. With quick thinking, he hurled a bloody bean into the monster's gaping maw. The hellhound convulsed in agony, whimpering as the chocolate-producing properties of the bean took effect. Vikir explained that chocolate was toxic to canines, and the concentrated essence of the bloody bean was enough to incapacitate the monstrous creature. With precision and determination, Vikir aimed his sword at the exposed kidney of the hellhound, a spot devoid of protective ribs. In one swift motion, he drove the blade deep, ending the monstrous threat effortlessly. As the hellhound fell, defeated, Vikir absorbed the essence known as XP or karma from the creature's demise, feeling a surge of strength coursing through him. He swung his sword experimentally, sensing its weight diminish, a tangible sign of his growing prowess. At just 8 years old, Vikir was already reclaiming the capabilities he had possessed before his regression, advancing swiftly towards his former heights. Thoughts of Hugo's reaction flickered through his mind, anticipating the patriarch's surprise and perhaps begrudging admiration when he presented the head of a B+ risk-rated monster. Standing over the fallen hellhound, Vikir exuded confidence in his abilities, ready to claim the trophy of his victory and prove his worth within the formidable Baskerville clan. He knew he had already secured first place in the practical test and was eager to claim his reward, something he had never dreamed of in his past life. But his moment of triumph was short-lived as a group of hellhounds approached him, likely seeking revenge for their fallen comrade. Vikir remained calm and collected, already knowing the weaknesses of these creatures and how to defeat them. As the hellhounds drew nearer, Vikir took out his sword and prepared to face them. He still had plenty of bloody beans left and was ready to use them to his advantage. With a smirk on his face, he cut off the head of the dead hellhound and taunted the others, knowing they were no match for his skills and knowledge. Having already defeated one of their kind, he was prepared to take them all down. The hellhound suddenly started whimpering, which immediately caught Vikir's attention. He couldn't believe that these fierce beasts were feeling scared by an 8-year-old's bloodthirst. Hellhounds would never submit to their prey, even if they were facing death. Vikir thought to himself, trying to figure out what could have caused the hellhounds to feel so uneasy. As Vikir turned around, he saw a monstrous creature with 3 heads standing before him. It was a Cerberus, the legendary 3-headed dog from Greek mythology. The creature was massive, measuring at least 7 meters in size. Vikir knew that a Cerberus posed a high risk, rated as a plus. He was bewildered as to why a Cerberus, typically inhabiting the 7th ridge of Le Rouge at Manhwa mountain, was here. Cerberus was known as the ultimate lookout monster, residing where all the dead spirits were headed. Vikir noticed that the Cerberus was bleeding and had multiple arrows stuck in its body. He realized that someone must have been hunting it, causing it to come here while being chased. This was his chance to kill an injured A+ rank monster, so he decided to attack the Cerberus. Despite its power and danger, Vikir had hidden his true abilities as a sword expert and had already reached a high level of expertise. His body had been strengthened by the river Styx, and all his weapons were effective against the injured Cerberus. With his refined swordsmanship, developed through wars with the demon clans, he successfully landed some hits on the Cerberus. Vikir believed he could do it. An injured Cerberus was within his reach. Vikir's attack on the Cerberus seemed to be working, and he thought he had a chance of defeating the injured A+ rank monster. However, in a brief lapse of focus, Vikir let his guard down, giving the Cerberus a chance to strike back with its razor-sharp claws. The first swipe shattered Vikir's sword, and the second sent him soaring through the air like a clumsy eagle. He collided with a sturdy tree trunk, making a sound that even the forest critters winced at. As he lay there, blood flowing from his mouth, it was clear Vikir wasn't having the best day. The impact had clearly caused a serious injury, leaving Vikir lying still, his body broken and unmoving. Slowly opening his eyes, Vikir panicked as he felt a sharp pain shooting through his left arm. He feared the worst had the Cerberus tried to redecorate by ripping his arm off. Thankfully, a quick glance down confirmed it was still attached, albeit not in peak condition. Relieved that his appendages were intact, Vikir pondered the mystical properties of the river Styx, wondering if its magic had saved his bacon. Grateful but not wanting to rely solely on enchanted rivers, Vikir took stock of his injuries. Knowing he couldn't play dodgeball with the Cerberus forever, he dodged yet another swipe from the beast. As a seasoned hunter, Vikir knew a strategic retreat was in order. He quickly decided that running away at top speed was the smart move. With his heart pounding like a drum solo, he spotted an iron fence just a few strides away. Hope surged faster than he could run. He pushed himself to the limit, squeezing through the gate with a sense of victory tinged with desperation. Safe from immediate danger but still far from relaxed, Vikir dashed through the woods toward a sanctuary he had prepared, a pit. With the Cerberus hot on his heels, he spotted his makeshift trap just in time. With a leap that would have made a hurdler proud, he narrowly dodged the beast's snapping jaws, sending it crashing into the pit filled with pointy surprises. Vikir couldn't help but grin, knowing all his careful planning had paid off spectacularly in this hairy encounter. Vikir had coated the wooden spears with a special concoction, a mix of bloody bean essence, which was like kryptonite for canine monsters. As the Cerberus growled and foamed at the mouth, Vikir kept his cool, ready for the next round in this epic showdown. Knowing the Cerberus was no pushover demon, Vikir took aim and hurled a spear at the hellhound, landing a solid hit on its flank. Despite the hit, the Cerberus wasn't down for the count. It lumbered towards Vikir, jaws snapping with determination. Vikir mentally counted each ominous step: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. With a sudden halt, the beast collapsed just feet away from him. Vikir breathed a sigh of relief, recalling the tales of the venomous bloody mamba snake whose bite left victims unable to take more than 7 steps. It seemed his childhood stash of deadly artifacts was finally paying off. As the Cerberus's energy dissipated, Vikir stood triumphant over its 3 now lifeless heads. He couldn't help but marvel at the power he now wielded, though his immediate concern turned to the logistics of moving the colossal carcass. The cause of death, marked by the venom-laced spear, would be a dead giveaway to any passerby. Perhaps the Guardian Knight, who had witnessed Vikir crafting these lethal weapons, could lend a hand. But then, Vikir's mind wandered to more tantalizing thoughts. If the Cerberus was a gatekeeper, what riches might lie beyond its guard? The lure of hidden treasure in a nearby dungeon set Vikir's pulse racing with anticipation. Determined to brave the dungeon's depths, Vikir did something only a seasoned adventurer would consider. He smeared himself with Cerberus dung, believing it would deter any pesky dungeon critters. With senses sharper than a freshly sharpened sword, he followed the Cerberus's trail through the forest, noting the telltale signs of its passage to dried earth, decaying leaves, and squishy roots. Following the scent trail with laser-like focus, he retraced his steps and recognized the entrance to the dungeon. This was the very place the Cerberus had fiercely guarded, and Vikir realized he'd been here before. He knew that in another decade, this dungeon would be discovered by everyone and picked clean, but for now, he could sense the magical energy beneath its decaying surface. Approaching cautiously, Vikir peered into the dungeon's dark depths. With no light in sight, he suspected it ran deeper than he had first thought. Undeterred, his crimson eyes gleaming with excitement, he ventured inside, eager to uncover its secrets. Navigating through the dungeon's gloom, Vikir spotted ruby-colored minerals scattered about, undoubtedly linked to the nearby Red All Mountain. Suddenly, a glimmer of light beckoned him further. Hastening his steps, he found himself in a chamber bathed in a radiant glow. His gaze fell upon a colossal ruby perched atop a pillar, its brilliance suggesting it was infused with potent mana. His wonderment, however, was cut short by the sight of a nearby skeleton. Examining it closely, he noted signs of violence, deep stab wounds and long-dried bloodstains. Someone had met an untimely end here long ago. Curious, Vikir picked up a letter lying next to the skeletal remains. The writer, identifying himself only as Cain, explained his reluctance to sully the pristine paper with his name. As Vikir read on, he recognized the elegant handwriting typical of a Baskerville. Could this Cain be a member of that illustrious family? The letter detailed how Cain and his brother Abel had stumbled upon the fabled stone chamber, a tale passed down through generations of the Baskerville family. The brothers had braved countless trials and slain many monsters to reach this elusive treasure. Yet, their journey culminated in a final trial that had ensnared them for 3 agonizing years. Vikir couldn't fathom the sacrifices they made for the dungeon's hidden riches. What treasure could possibly justify such a harrowing ordeal? His thoughts returned to the present as he gazed upon the splendid ruby at the chamber's heart, sensing it held the key to unraveling the last challenge. Vikir recited the cryptic puzzle etched on the monument. When entering, it's 1, but once inside, it's 2. When leaving, it's 1. The riddle baffled him, much like it had Cain and Abel, as described in the letter. According to Cain's account, the brothers had pondered the enigmatic text at length. They had even theorized that they were twins separated at birth and needed to reunite to claim the treasure. In a tragic twist, Cain had slain Abel in a desperate bid to fulfill the puzzle's demand, yet nothing changed. They had gone from 2 to 1, but the treasure remained elusive. In despair, Cain had left the dungeon, warning others of its deceptive nature. Vikir carefully read Cain's narrative of their perilous journey, reflecting on his own quest, now mirroring theirs despite lacking a twin. He was convinced Cain and Abel had misunderstood the puzzle, but what was its true meaning? When entering, it's 1, but once inside, it's 2. When leaving, it's 1. The words reverberated in his mind as he wrestled with their implications. Determined not to be outsmarted by some ancient dungeon, Vikir resolved to solve this puzzle and claim its elusive prize. Vikir scrutinized the skeleton before him and had a sudden revelation. Reflecting on Cain and Abel's tragic failure, he realized their downfall had been their rigid individuality. Walking towards the radiant ruby at the chamber's center, he studied the dark passage leading to a brilliantly lit stone chamber and deciphered the dungeon's secret within the riddle. I am 1 upon entering the dark passage, but when the ruby's light casts my shadow, I become 2. And as darkness returns, the final stage of the stone chamber will open. With determination, Vikir shattered the ruby, revealing the answer, shadow. As the ruby shattered, a blinding flash of light filled the chamber, unveiling the long-hidden treasure. Vikir's eyes widened in awe at what lay before him, the very object that had claimed the lives of Cain and Abel. There, upon a stone pedestal, rested a sword emanating an ominous aura. Vikir was taken aback by the sight of the blade and wondered if it was the legendary relic of the Devil's Den. Examining it closely, his gaze fell upon the inscription beneath the sword, declaring that only those of Baskerville blood could wield Beelzebub. Shocked yet intrigued, Vikir realized that the sword Beelzebub originated from this very place. At the mention of Beelzebub, memories from Vikir's distant past flooded back. He recalled childhood tales of the gluttonous fly Beelzebub, a monstrous entity from ancient legends that had once threatened the continent. Beelzebub was a part of the devil's holy constellation, known as the 7 Calamities, against which the heads of the 7 noble families had once risen. Vikir remembered that the first patriarch of the Baskerville family had fought Beelzebub, and the remnants of its malevolent power were said to be safeguarded in Baskerville lands. Despite skepticism among many about the legend's truth, Vikir knew now, standing before the sword, that it was all too real. He also recalled the grim history of Beelzebub's blade, how it had been seized by demon clans, causing untold human suffering on battlefields. Determined that it would never fall into demon hands again, Vikir reached out to claim it as his own. Suddenly, he felt a surge of energy coursing into his hand, and with a startled exclamation, he grasped the hilt firmly. The sword vanished from sight, reappearing moments later, its form melded seamlessly with Vikir's hand. With the sword Beelzebub now fused to his hand, Vikir stood in the chamber, washed in a mixture of awe and determination. The legends of his family, once distant stories, now pulsed with newfound relevance. As he prepared to leave the dungeon, he knew that this discovery marked not just the end of a quest, but the beginning of a new chapter in his own tale. Stay tuned for more epic adventures by liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Don't miss out on the next thrilling chapter awaiting us. Remember to hit that notification bell so you're always the first to know when the next video drops. Until then, may your quests be as bold as Vikir's, and your treasures as legendary as Beelzebub itself. Thanks for watching.